This is Jacob Chansley. If you're unfamiliar, he's also known as the QAnon Shaman. He was at the Capitol on January 6th, and he made a mess of everything and ended up in prison for it for a while. I think he got sentenced like 40-something months, basically 4 years or something, and he just got out. Okay, well, I wanted to watch one of his older interviews on the anniversary of January 6th. So this is 2022, January 6th, 2022, when this interview came out. It's with Channel 5. It's so fascinating to listen to his headspace when he was in prison for Donald Trump. Seriously, in prison for Donald Trump. This is not part one. If you haven't seen the other, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. If you want to see which part this is, it should be in the title. So anyway, let's give this a listen, see what he has to say for himself. And while we do, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild too.
Trump, he was tough on China. He was tough on Russia. He was tough on Iran. He was trying to create peace in the Middle East.
Was he? Was he trying to create peace in the Middle East? Is that what was happening? No. At no point was Trump trying to do that. This is completely fabricated. Some called the Abraham Accords. And Trump claims that the Abraham Accords were accomplishing peace in the Middle East. That's not what was happening. Muslims have always had a problem with the Jewish community, or for a very long time at the very least. And that's, Iran and other places. That's largely because all through the 1900s, the KGB, the CIA for Russia back in the day, the old USSR, they used to pass around a book called Protocols of the Elders of Zion. They passed it all over the Middle East to galvanize the Muslim community against Jewish people, against the nation of Israel. So primarily after the 40s, in the 50s, they started doing this a lot. So anyways, that's one of the big reasons why Muslims hate Jews, because they were, propagandized too over the course of a century, honestly. So Trump tried to do something called the Abraham Accords. He got Jared Kushner to write up Abraham Accords, which basically made it so that people in Saudi Arabia were openly trading with Israel, which is already happening. They were already trading with Israel, but instead of doing it through back channels, they were doing it publicly now. That's it. That's not peace in the Middle East. They still had problems with each other. There's still conflict and all of that stuff. But, getting something on paper like the Abraham Accords gives Trump the ammunition he believes he needs to claim that he accomplished peace in the Middle East when he simply did not. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video.
He was tough on China. He was tough on Russia. He was tough on Iran. He was trying to create peace in the Middle East. He released the JFK file. He created the Space Force. That was also during the Trump administration. There was a declassification of zero-point energy engine and inertial propulsion or anti-gravity craft.
My God, dude, he's all in with this. Seriously. Anti-gravity craft and all this? This is crazy, dude.
The Navy put out there. Okay, I'll put it this way. Q is the only major movement in history, as far as I can tell, that is working to disclose the full truth about, say, government special access programs, top secret information and technologies, the truth about things like aliens or interdimensional beings and their role here on the planet.
Oh, boy.
They're the only ones that this movement was the only portion of any sort of campaign that I've seen in history that is talking about like the breakaway civilization that has been created in these deep underground military bases.
That's another thing. This guy believes in breakaway civilizations. That is detached from reality. This guy desperately needs to get away from the internet, like immediately. This is, like, sad.
It's the only movement that is disclosing the truth about things like looking glass technology, the anti-gravity technology or inertia propulsion technology, how it relates to things like time travel and creating timelines, the way that we have like healing technologies or infinite energy devices, and how all this stuff relates to black budgets and to the
Jesus, dude, this guy is gone.
the endless amount of tax dollars that are being used to create this breakaway civilization. We procured over 1,500 Nazi scientists, doctors, and intelligence agents and brought them over here. We wiped their war records and their war crimes clean. We brought them into our government and put them...
Okay, what he's talking about here is Operation Paperclip, and that's actually true. There's no conspiracy to be had here. There's no big secret or whatever. This is a known and understood thing that took place. The reason he's even talking about this, Operation Paperclip, is because he wants to make it out as though, like, the government is doing some nefarious things and they're run by blah, 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 whatever. So just if you're not familiar with this, I'll explain. Operation Paperclip was this thing that happened after World War II. Everything was falling apart in Germany, and people were fleeing, and, Nazis were fleeing. They were trying to get out of the area, basically. And the U.S. hired a bunch of Nazi doctors, gave them, immunity to come over to the U.S. and work for them instead in their labs. Because there was a big conflict between the U.S. and Russia at the time, the USSR. And they were afraid that the USSR was going to pick up these Nazi doctors before the U.S. could. So they rushed to hire these Nazi doctors. That was Operation Paperclip. And it was wrong. And we know exactly how that worked. You know what I would have done? I would have hired these people, kept them on for 6 months, and then when the heat died down, tried them for the war crimes that they deserve to be tried with. So anyways, I guess he's saying that, like, the U.S. government is made up of Nazis now because they hired Nazi doctors to come here after World War II? Is that the implication?
We're here. We wiped their war records and their war crimes clean. We brought them into our government and put them some of the highest levels of power in our...
Yeah, I don't know about, like, highest levels of power or anything, but yeah, we brought them over and we protected them from prosecution if they agreed to work with the United States, like, against the USSR or whatever, and that's what happened, so... I mean, you see how he's taking a grain of truth and building it into something completely absurd?
The government bureaucracy during Operation Paperclip?
Right.
Go ahead.
I was saying, like, a lot of those things, like, are objectively true, right? Operation Paperclip was real. Operation Mockingbird was real.
Right, where they tried to control... Here, I'll just read the article he has pulled up. Operation Mockingbird is an alleged large-scale program of U.S. CIA that began in the early years of the Cold War and attempted to manipulate news media for propaganda purposes. So back in the 50s, I guess. 50s, 60s, 70s. According to author Deborah Davis, Operation Mockingbird recruited leading American journalists into a propaganda network and influenced the operations of front groups. CIA support of front groups was exposed when a 1967 Ramparts magazine article reported that the National Student Association received funding from the CIA. In 1975, Church Committee congressional investigations revealed agency connections with journalists and civic groups. So it was revealed. It was all blown out of the water, and we discovered all of this stuff. And MK Ultra, he's about to mention that too. Yeah, that one was real too. But it was all exposed. It all fell apart. It wasn't this big deal that he wants to make it out to be. It's not still happening or any of that.
True, right? Operation Paperclip was real. Operation Mockingbird was real. MK Ultra was also real. But do you think that the more intense stuff in the Q universe, like elite...
Yeah, stuff that's built off of all of this. You have to buy into the more extreme stuff to be a QAnoner.
The more intense stuff in the Q universe, like elite Democrats drinking children's blood, is also real?
Here's the thing about that. What? For thousands of years, that has been something that has been practiced by elite groups in high levels of occultic power.
What, people drinking kids' blood? No. What kind of a fantasy land does this guy live in? Silly question, I know. We know exactly what kind of fantasy land he lives in.
Okay, in ancient Rome, in ancient Egypt, okay, in ancient Babylon, in ancient Sumer. Okay, there were high levels of elites, okay, and these individuals, what they would do is they would consume large amounts of psychoactive plants, and then they would do so at places like sacred sites, like the pyramids, or in temples, or near obelisks, or out in the desert, or at sacred sites, et cetera, et cetera. And when they consumed these large amounts of psychoactive plants, they would have these out-of-body experiences where they communicated with interdimensional beings.
Wow, interdimensional beings, he says. They'd have psychoactive plants that allow them to communicate with interdimensional beings. Okay? I mean, this guy is now gone completely off the rails, right? This guy is into La La Land. No longer connected to reality. I'm thinking this guy should be removed from the internet. Like, he shouldn't be allowed to access the internet at all. I say that now, but the guy that, like, Kevin Mitnick, famous hacker, was banned from being within 40 feet of a computer, like, as one of his sentencing guidelines, back in the 90s, and now they're, like, everywhere. They had to modify it, so it may come to a point where you just can't stay off the internet, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
That were of like a higher dimensional realm in the frequencies of light that are not perceived by the five senses, okay? And they would download large amounts of data in these higher dimensional data fields that in many cases would go beyond syntax or go beyond the use of words. And these individuals basically expanded their consciousness field to like cosmic levels of proportion and were able to digest these massive amounts of knowledge that most people don't even perceive because they're so busy being stuck in their bodies.
Bro, please come back to reality with the rest of us. I am begging you.
Now, with all of that said, there's another faction within the ancient Egyptian hierarchy, and that would be like the people that worship Set. And Set is like the ancient Egyptian form of Satan. Okay, so Satan worship and Saturn worship are one and the same thing. And so there was this ancient form of Saturn worship in ancient Egypt.
So again, this is really interesting to me because it shows that QAnon isn't an exclusively Christian cult. It can also be believed by just normal or other religious types of people. It can also be believed by other religious types of people. That's really, really fascinating to me. But for what it's worth, a lot of the beliefs that he's laying down right now are fundamental beliefs in QAnon. Like, you have to believe a lot of this stuff if you want to be like a member, which I'm talking about, like the stuff about elites drinking kids' blood and how it's always been a part of society since the beginning, and all that stuff.
Consuming large amounts of psychoactive plants, which they did do on occasion, but what they did more than anything is they used things like, say, Hebrew children or children of slaves to do these satanic ceremonies of blood sacrifice. And the whole idea is that they terrified their victims to the point to where their victims had an out-of-body experience.
He's talking about adrenochrome here. He's describing how they get adrenochrome. It's made up. For the record, before he actually gets into it, adrenochrome is the spent adrenaline in your body. So when you jump out of a plane doing skydiving or something or whatever, when something causes you to have some kind of extreme adrenaline response, your body processes that adrenaline and oxygen molecules attached to it, and it becomes adrenochrome at that point. Adrenochrome is not like some secret drug that people drink or whatever. Like, that's completely made up. But he needs this to be a piece of the belief because it's a fundamental piece of QAnon. It is a belief within the ideology that, elites are drinking adrenochrome. It's a fake drug made up in the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. and they needed it to be real.
They're victims to the point to where their victims had an out-of-body experience. And in this out-of-body experience, their body filled with adrenaline, okay? And as their body filled with a bunch of adrenaline, they would end up killing the victim, sacrificing them to Saturn, okay? And in the process...
No, not okay. This is made up.
Their adrenalized blood would be drained and poured into like a chalice or something like that. And when they drank the blood, they were drinking something known as adrenochrome, because once the adrenalized blood was hit with oxygen, it changed from adrenaline to adrenochrome.
That's correct that it changes to adrenochrome once it's oxygenated. It doesn't act as a drug. You can take oxygenated adrenaline all you want, and it doesn't do anything for you except maybe give you a headache. I mean, it's not even that hard to access, honestly. You can buy it on eBay, I think, or either way, it's available to scientists. Scientists can just buy the stuff because they experiment with it. But, you know, he's got to live in this fantasy where the elites are out doing this adrenochrome stuff or whatever. It's just insane, man.
Okay, and if people don't believe that adrenochrome is real, all you got to do is watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, okay?
They made that drug up in Fear and Loathing. This is so sad, man. So sad.
Again, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas adrenochrome scene, and you will see that this is a very real thing, that you are able to harvest this chemical, this adrenalized blood, and drink it or ingest it, and it will be like an intense psychedelic high.
Does he think Fear and Loathing was a documentary? It was a funny movie. It was intended to be funny. It was not a documentary. This is insane and sad.
And these individuals would end up using this understanding that they had just for themselves and creating sort of like an elite group caste that kept everybody else marginalized and ruled. A lot of the time it was the same bloodlines that were moving from one empire to the other around the globe and erecting these empires based off of that.
So that's interesting. That's an additional step. Not only is it the same people that want to take your data. Not only is it the same people that want to corrupt politicians and control them like puppet masters, but it's also the same people around the world that are doing this stuff. It can't just be that like there are just like a lot of corrupt people in the world and they're all just scumbags. It has to be a cabal, a secret group behind the scenes pulling strings. Like George Soros is doing all this or something. Absurd. And Hillary Clinton.
The same ritual magic, okay? And they would infiltrate the gene pools of certain ecosystems or certain nations. And then they would use these individuals, as they infiltrated the gene pool, they would use their children as like higher level people in power, whether it be making them king or making them a prince or a duke or a sultan or whatever. So this is something that has been going on for quite some time. I mean, if you look into, how similar I forgot his first name, but there was a certain Rockefeller that looks just like John Podesta, and John Podesta looks just like the singer from what's his name, from Linkin Park.
Oh, this is sad, dude. Chester Bennington, is that who he's talking about? Didn't he kill himself? I think. Well, he did, but is that his name? I don't remember. This is really sad, man. Just using Chester's reputation like this.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Chester Bennington.
Chester Bennington, thank you. Yeah, they all look like strikingly similar. Okay.
Not really.
Merkel in Germany looks just like Hitler. Barbara
Not really.
Bush looks just like Aleister Crowley.
I'm sorry, man. I'm not seeing it.
They're talking about is like a 6,000-year-old death cult that has been sacrificing children, like what was going on in Babylon and in.
Somebody is watching me do this right now and is like laughing their ass off because I'm failing miserably and I have no idea what I'm doing in this. And I'm just fucking everything up and they know it. And so, yeah. Is this even going to work? Probably not, right? I was hoping that it was going to be able to go against the current. I have no idea how to get this ball down there. I don't know if I hit this shrine last time or not. I don't remember. But I am super confused by this shrine. Sorry, I'm just trying to think for a second here. How do you do this? Like, how do you get the ball down there? Do I just have to take it back? Certainly not, right? I brought it all this way. I can't take it back. What do I do? Do I build? I don't know. All right, you know what? I'm going to try something I saw somebody do once. Let's give it a try. All right, we'll see if this works. This is cheese. If this works, this is cheese. Complete cheese. Let's give this a shot here. Okay. Now I'm going to step on this one. Time stop on this. Ultra hand on this. Okay. So this one just got a lot higher than the other. So now I can pull the orb off of this, put it on this, do time stop on this one. You see how I'm getting higher, right? Okay. Now, turn off time stop. Grab the ball. Attach it to this. I'm going to go one more level up, I think. Okay. Should be good. Trying to think about how to do this. Hang on. How do I do this? Oh, okay. I got it. Total cheese. Total cheese. You're not supposed to do it this way. I am cheating the shit out of the system right now. Yeah. This is me breaking the system. I mean, I did cheat just now, right? That was cheating, wasn't it? But it worked, you know. Now, yeah, someone says don't drop the ball. Absolutely. Don't let it fall in the... No. Please, no. Oh, my God, yes. Oh, my God, yeah. That was close. Oh, I got it. That was total cheese. I don't know how you're supposed to do that, but I cheated the shit out of that shrine just now. Can you lift yourself up like that to infinity? Yes, you can, but there's no point. You can just lift yourself to infinity with other items, like with the fans or whatever. Oh, that's how you do it, baby. Awesome. I made a car to ride the rails. Oh, that's not a bad idea. I should have done that. You're absolutely right. I should have done that. That's probably intended, right? That's probably what I should have done. I can't believe I didn't do it that way. They gave me wheels and everything. Yeah, I cheated the shit out of the system just now. I'm actually pretty proud of that. That was, somebody says, that was really big brain. I appreciate it. I don't think that was the intention, though. I think building a car to ride the rails was the intent, in retrospect. Anyway, let's keep listening to the QAnon shaman here.
1,000-year-old death cult that has been sacrificing children, like what was going on in Babylon and in the Canaanites, where they were sacrificing children to Baal and Moloch and all that stuff. Okay, there's international bankers that own whole economies. There international bankers that own whole countries and whole...
See how he's taking little grains of truth and he's twisting it into something new?
Economies, okay? And these individuals are able to control and corrupt whole institutions of government, of corporations, banking.
Right. So I just...
Yes, that does not mean that there's some military guy out there that calls himself Q clearance patriot that like works with Donald Trump closely and to stop these people from drinking adrenochrome and everything else. Like little grains of truth. And everything else completely fabricated, like all of it. Insane.
just wanted to say,
Step back.
Of government, of corporations, banking.
Right. So I just wanted to say, I feel that when people talk about ritual murder and the satanic sacrifice of children, I think that raises a lot of red flags for people in terms of like anti-Semitism.
Oh, yeah. You know why? Because I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to talk about this eventually. There's this thing called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I mentioned it before. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but just for good measure, let me explain what the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is exactly. In 1902, newspapers in Tsarist Russia start publishing this document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. They came up with, I don't know, like 15 or 18 of them, or I don't remember exactly how many. They claimed that they found these documents on dead Jewish soldiers, and they were like articles that describe how the Jews were going to like accomplish world domination. Now, this is completely made up. It was anti-Semitic propaganda, obviously. There was no dead Jewish soldier. There were no elders of Zion. It was all completely fabricated from the ground up. But it was used to demonize a minority group within the country. And if there's one thing we've learned over the past couple of years even, it's that fascists and extremists love to blame all of their problems on minorities. Hitler, when he eventually came around, even reprinted copies of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and wrote about it in Mein Kampf, like talked about how the Jews are trying to take over and all this other stuff. But in 1923, about 20 years after it came out, it was discovered that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was actually plagiarized, full-blown, copied and pasted, or the writing version of copied and pasted, the early 1900s version of copy and paste, straight from an 1854 satire book, a French satire book that didn't even mention Jews. It was just straight up plagiarized. 80% of it was plagiarized from this 1854 book, thus putting the final nail in the coffin, proving that this was completely forged. It was fake. It was just propagandistic bullshit created by, anti-Semites to destroy the Jewish community. So that is what the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is. This is actually a copy of it right here. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was compiled into a book in 1905 called Protocols of the Meetings of the Learned Elders of Zion. A little bit longer, but yeah, it's all fake. It was all completely faked. I'm not exactly sure how many protocols there are. 10 at least. There may be more than that. Well, anyway, protocols includes things like, just listen to like one or two lines here. In miserable Russia, the Jews are less than 5% of the population, yet they hold over 90% of the official positions. Russians and Jews are very much different, yet Russia is governed by a mere handful of unprincipled Jews. The 95% of Russians have only a 10% say-so about their own government, and even the 10% in office are but lickspittle, or fronts, to the domineering Jews. To the reasoning mind, such a condition of affairs seems impossible, yet the condition exists. In fact, a careful study to the protocols alone will clear up the mystery. Now that you've read that one sentence from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a book supposedly discovered on a dead Jewish soldier, written by Jews in power, listen to what this televangelist Lance Wallnau says. He's about to explain Seven Mountains Dominionism, or the Seven Mountains Mandate, which is the televangelist's plan to take control of the country. I'm not joking. This is from early March 2022.
3% of the population, roughly 3 to 4% of the population, are radical leftist elites. 30% of the population are evangelical born-again Christians that are inclined to go towards Pentecostal language. I mean, we're really out there. 30% against 3%, but they neutralize the church because they're also in religion. They changed the definition of marriage, so they've taken over family. They've totally taken over academia, so the education institutions are teaching leftist theology or leftist ideology and silencing conservatives. They're controlling government right now. They've taken over legacy media, Hollywood, entertainment, and arts, And now they've got Wall Street.
These are the 7 mountains, the 7 areas of society that they want to take over to control society in a Christian nationalist state, is what he's describing right now. This came straight out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, directly lifted from it. Did Lance Wallnau lift it? I don't know. Somebody did and provided this information to him, and he started repeating it. Somebody lifted it directly from Protocols.
This is 3%. 30% of the population is Christian. How is it that 30% are dominated by 3%? They have a worldview for bringing their kingdom here now.
I'm dead serious. This came straight from Protocols. Jews are less than 5% of the population, yet hold over 90% of the official positions. Russians and Jews are very much different, yet Russia's governed by a mere handful of unprincipled Jews. I mean, you're seeing the similarities, right? There are other similarities. I can't find it at this moment, but there's another part that talks about Jews attempting to spread Darwinism and Marxism through society because they're wonderfully destructive ideologies. They're trying to spread them through society to destroy society. Does this sound familiar? Darwinism, Marxism, saying that they destroy society. The leftists are setting out to destroy it. Seriously. Word for word, the tactics being used on the right at the moment. That's what Protocols of Elders of Zion is. That's what it's all about. That's where a lot of televangelists are getting their ideas from. Directly, I don't know. Setting out to deceive, I don't know. Are they even aware of this document? I have no idea. But it's copied word for word in some situations, and it's uncanny. Oh, here's another one. The idea that Jews eat babies, or that the elites drink adrenochrome from children. That's straight from Protocols of the Elders of Zion. QAnon is nothing more than a rebranded Nazi death cult. Every conspiracy theory you can come up with came from this document. The conspiracy theory that Jews eat babies or that they drink the blood of children, that's from Protocols. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The idea that they control the big banks and the media and all of the other stuff, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's from this document right here. The conspiracy theory that they try to cancel people that they don't like, cancel culture, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's all from this. The idea that Marxism and Darwinism are evil and that they're trying to use it to destroy society, Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's all from this. Every conspiracy theory in the past 100 years that you can think of. The Great Replacement, where they're trying to bring in other groups of immigrants to destroy our culture and to outweigh votes and things like that. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The conspiracy theory that Jewish people are trying to enslave the world or whatever other thing, it's all from this book. Dead serious. This is where pretty much all anti-Semitism stems from, or, well, I guess that's not exactly accurate. This is a compilation of all anti-Semitism from the past 1,000 years. It was all put into a book right here, and it was passed around Nazi Germany. And, get this, it was passed around the Middle East by the KGB in the 20th century. Passed around in Iran and Saudi Arabia and all of the other Middle Eastern countries in that area, Egypt and all of them, by the KGB to make the Middle East hate Israel even more. That's at least part of the reason why Iran absolutely hates Israel and why they're Holocaust deniers. Or not Iran necessarily, but the leadership in Iran. That's why they're like that. Because the KGB passed these conspiracy theories around over the past 100 years. Thanks, past me. So that's the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That's where a lot of anti-Semitism came from in the 20th century. It was a compilation of the anti-Semitism from, the past 1,000 years, 2,000, 3,000 years. Jews were they were isolated from other communities because, Christians in various areas of the world and in various different denominations or whatever believed that Jews, or that you shouldn't like mingle with outsiders. You shouldn't be friends with them. You shouldn't talk to them, whatever else. And that ended in Jews like being removed from communities, like being isolated and not really hanging out with them. And also they were minority groups in these communities. They were small compared to everywhere else and everybody else. So Jews were, of course, minorities are always hated and distrusted and criticized and everything. That's just the way of the world. It always has been. So the Jews were distrusted. During the Black Plague, Jews had certain customs about when you were supposed to like clean and when, you know, not touching dead bodies and things like that, that Christians didn't have. Christians didn't have those same customs. And as a result, the Black Plague hit the Jewish community a little lighter than the Christian communities. And, of course, that is fertile ground for breeding a conspiracy theory. The Jews are causing this whole thing. So they were very easy to blame for the problems in society throughout history. They've always been easy to blame. Like I said, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is just a compilation of all of that blame that they got over the generations. So, anyways, that's the history of it, of anti-Semitism. And that's why Andrew Callahan here is talking about anti-Semitism and how this is like an anti-Semitic trope or whatever. That's why he's saying that. So with that context in mind, let's keep listening.
Because, I mean, people used what they call blood libel all throughout the 20...
Yeah, blood libel is it's the conspiracy about the Jewish community that they drink kids' blood and stuff like that. That's blood libel.
Because, I mean, people used what they call blood libel all throughout the 20th century to provide justifications for genocide. And it was kind of spread as propaganda because, saying that someone eats babies is like the worst thing you can say about someone, pretty much.
Yeah, they actually said that, for real. I thought that was just a meme in the atheist community for a while. Oh, atheists eat babies. No, that's real. People believe that. Seriously.
It's like, if, you lose all your friends, like, if people think you eat babies, like, it's over for your career and social life.
Well, and I think it's important to note here, though, that first of all, you're absolutely right, and there have been many people that have been maligned and been demonized as dark occultists, and it turns out that they're not. There have been a lot of people that have taken the rap when they weren't doing any of these things. Like you said, it was just negative propaganda campaigns. But I also think it's important to note here that there's people that say, oh, it's the Hebrews that are doing it, or it's the Satanists that are doing it, or whatever. What you got to keep in mind is that, first of all, real Hebrews would never do anything like that.
Real Hebrews would never do anything like that. So is he saying that the fake Jews would do such a thing? Here's another conspiracy theory. I'm not going to play a clip for this one, but, well, I don't know. I might insert a clip later, but there's a guy named Shane Vaughn that explains this succinctly. The belief is that, there were 12 tribes of the Jews. That's true. The Bible talks about the 12 tribes of Israel. Judah and Asher and Reuben and so on and so forth, right? There were 12. Levi. So there were 12 tribes. Well, the belief in QAnon circles and among certain Christians who believe Trump is the Messiah is that there was a Jewish tribe that left Israel and went up over the Caucasus Mountains to come to eventually sail to America. And the founding fathers are direct descendants of those people. So when the founding fathers got here and wrote a constitution, they were actually, when the Constitution was written, it was given to them by God, and it was, when they signed it, they forged a deal with God, the same way that Jews forged a deal with Yahweh back in the day to protect them and everything else. So they believe that Trump is the new Messiah. They believe that he replaces Jesus. He's the Son of Man, as described in the Bible. The Old Testament describes the Son of Man. That's the Messiah that will come along, take political control of the country, and spark Armageddon into being. And they say Jesus wasn't the Son of Man because he was the Son of God, but not the Son of Man, because he didn't take political control of Israel, as the Bible says the Son of Man will. Take political control over the country that has the deal forged with Yahweh, basically. So Jesus couldn't have been the Son of Man because he'd never finished any of that stuff. And they're correct. Jesus never did any of that, never took political control as the king of Israel. And he never, God, dude, I wish they would just let me do it. There should be an easy skip animation in Mega Man Legends for the PlayStation 1. They had an easy skip animation. You could skip literally any animation, literally any. But apparently you can't do that in this. It's really, really annoying. It's so time-wasting. Anyway, so Jesus was supposed to take control of the political machinations in Israel and then spark Armageddon into being. He never did that. So his followers in his day believed that he would come back because he never came back. Like, he never finished that stuff. He never did that stuff. So they believed that he'd be back. The Old Testament never says a word about Jesus coming back or the Messiah or the Son of Man coming back or any of that. The Messiah comes to earth and he finishes the job, takes political control and all that stuff and calls it. And that never happened with Jesus. So, anyways, that's why they believe it's Trump. They don't like coming out and saying that, but there's a guy that wrote a whole book about it, and some of them have come out and just admitted to it.
Or whatever. What you got to keep in mind is that, first of all, real Hebrews would never do anything like that.
Real Hebrews are the ones that came over the Caucasus Mountains and moved to the Americas and eventually became the founding fathers. The Jews that are pretending to be Jews right now are just that. They're imposters. The people that have control of Israel right now are imposters. That's their belief. Real Hebrews, like Trump and the founding fathers, would never do something like that.
Keep in mind is that, first of all, real Hebrews would never do anything like that.
When you say they worship Saturn, are you talking about the planet?
Yes. Satan worship and Saturn worship are one and the same.
Is it just because they sound similar, or is there a connection?
No. We're talking people that understand the intricacies of astrology, interconnectivity, or what is called quantum entanglement in the quantum field.
Oh, please. Anytime somebody mentions quantum entanglement, it's a joke to me. They have no idea what they're talking about. There's nothing like mystical or whatever about quantum entanglement. Absurd.
Quantum entanglement in the quantum field. Or the way that electromagnetic fields are nested. And when you contribute certain energies to a certain electromagnetic field, there are certain effects that happen within the ecosystem or within the electromagnetic nested ball of yarn, shall we say.
Okay, that was complete meaningless garbage. It meant nothing at all. It was just straight nonsense. But this is, by and large, a QAnon belief still. We aren't into, like, his shaman whatever. We're still in QAnon. Insane!
Right. So I want to talk...
The guy says, right. That's funny.
A little bit more about QAnon. So the mythology of QAnon was all about how this event was going to happen, and it was going to be called the Storm, which is basically when they stop the steal, they put Trump rightfully back in the White House, and then patriots take control of the country and disempower the deep state. But on December 8th, 2020, QAnon made its last post, which was just a YouTube link to the song We're Not Gonna Take It, We're Not Gonna Take It.
By Twisted Sister. Yep, that was the last post. QAnon's been posting again since then, so it's not their last post anymore, but at the time it was. Yeah, that's the belief that the storm was going to set everything right. And January 6th was supposed to be the storm. They don't talk about this much, But that's what it was. It was supposed to be the storm, and it failed miserably.
And then pretty much like went dark. And so it's like, I think it leaves a lot of people wondering, like, did the storm happen? Like, what's up with the storm? Is it still coming? Like, what's next?
Well, first of all,
Again, it's supposed to be January 6th. Jacob Chansley knows that. He doesn't like talking about it because this is like private QAnon information that you're not supposed to be privy to unless you're a part of the belief system, basically.
well, I think that we were in the midst of the storm with all of this COVID stuff.
Bullshit. He knows about January 6th being the storm.
I think that we're in the midst of it right now. If you think about the damage that's being done to our economy, to our culture, to our national identity, to the truther movement.
That's not the storm. That's not what the storm was supposed to be or expected to be. The storm was supposed to be a big event where the white hat military comes in and rights wrongs and corrects everything for everybody. What is he talking about right now? We're in the midst of the storm right now. This is complete nonsense.
As it were. But I think that it's important that people realize that people now know about child and human trafficking, and they also know about the hundreds of deep underground military bases in the United States and all over.
Okay, so he's saying that the storm never happened, and here is the upside. Storm never happened, but people know about this stuff now. Like, all the stuff that he's listing is complete garbage anyways. The human trafficking problem is not what QAnon represents it to be at all. And they have no way of knowing any of this stuff about how many people are human trafficked or whatever. And don't you find it interesting on that note that these are the first people to defend Andrew Tate? Isn't that interesting? An actual, literal, real human trafficker? First ones to defend him. Weird. How weird is that?
Over the world.
It's almost like they don't care about human trafficking. Never did. It was always virtue signaling. It was always about supporting the people that they liked the best. And they never cared about any of this.
They also know about things like spiritual parasites and the way that, psychic vampires play a role. They know about
Oh, boy.
adrenochrome. They know about Bohemian Grove. They know about Jeffrey Epstein and his island and all the networks and the code. They know.
You said psychic vampires?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what these Satanists are. Is they're like psychic vampires.
Okay.
They're like demonic possessed people. That's part of what black magic is you allow your body to be like a vessel for a demonic spirit. Okay?
Dude, we are going so far off the rails right now. I can't even see where we started.
Okay? So people know about the deep state. They know about how blackmail is used in the deep state to cover up the crimes against humanity. How it's all these networks, the networks and the Mockingbird media is used to cover up the truth about this breakaway civilization that's going.
Mockingbird media, another reference to something that actually happened, Operation Mockingbird, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. That was exposed and is no longer happening. He believes it anyway. See, it's a grain of truth to everything, but he takes something and just goes completely off the rails with it every time. Starts with a grain of truth and then goes completely off the rails and makes wild suppositions and accusations.
Used to cover up the truth about this breakaway civilization that's going on underneath our feet as we speak. People are being neuro-linguistically programmed with the truth.
With the truth. Fascinating. So I guess he believes that QAnon is doing the neuro-linguistic programming. If you're unaware of what NLP is, it's effectively fake for all intents and purposes. It doesn't actually work, but the belief is that NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is this thing where you can subliminally program somebody by giving them little hints. If you blink your eye at the right moment, then it subtly sways people to make decisions that you want them to make or whatever. Subliminal programming is what NLP is. And it was studied by scientists and determined to be fake. It's not real. It doesn't actually do what these people think it does. So apparently he believes that he's the one doing the neuro-linguistic programming. Is that right? Am I reading this correctly?
But unfortunately,
Sorry, let's step back.
this breakaway civilization that's going on underneath our feet as we speak, people are being neuro-linguistically programmed with the truth. But unfortunately, the movement has become fragmented. There's people that infiltrate and spread disinformation.
Right. So I just want to go back to the storm a little bit. The 6th of January was supposed to be the storm.
There you go. Confront him with the facts.
Right.
Is that the case? I don't know.
Yeah, he knows this. He was out of jail for a while. He wasn't sent to jail until November 2021. So 9 months or 10 months after January 6th took place is when he ended up in jail. He had plenty of time to look into what QAnon was saying about whatever. He knows full well the storm was supposed to be January 6th.
I remember like in a lot of the flyers that I saw for the 6th beforehand, like that got sent to me, it was like the storm is coming, the 6th is the storm, you know.
Yep. Leading up to it, they were saying the 6th is the storm.
Because, you know, they're going to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden. And then the 20th was supposed to be the storm, which was Inauguration Day. And I was actually in D.C. for Inauguration Day, and it was a military occupation in the streets. Like, I mean, there was checkpoints on every street. You couldn't even walk around. There was hardly even a celebration crowd for Biden, and definitely not really an opposition crowd for Trump. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason is because there were Trump extremists roving about who had just attempted a military coup, and there were rumblings of other military coups coming in the future. So it makes complete sense. And Biden says he wasn't going to have a big inauguration. It was going to be a little thing with a few people for reasons of COVID. And that's totally reasonable. It's a good excuse even to prevent, anything from going nuts. But I remember back then there were a bunch of QAnoners who made wild claims about Inauguration Day and the January 6th and everything. It was supposed to be the storm.
Celebration crowd for Biden, and definitely not really an opposition crowd for Trump. I think a lot of people just got turned off from Q because they saw the goalposts just being moved what felt like over and over again. And I was wondering if you felt like it's possible that QAnon may have been a psyop to delegitimize the truth about things like Operation Mockingbird and Operation Paperclip.
That's fascinating. I love this dude's framing. That's really, really good.
I think that there is going to be, in any sort of a truth movement, there's going to be infiltrators and disinformation agents. People have to understand that what we're dealing with is a new type of warfare. Okay, it's a new type of warfare. It's information and economic warfare. And
I'm wondering if this got this guy thinking, because he did another interview after leaving jail, May 26th, with Allison Steinberg on OANN, One American News. I may end up covering that if I can get my hands on it. But when he did that interview, which was maybe a year and a half after this one, I think maybe, he claimed that QAnon was a psyop, but he still believed a lot of the stuff with it, basically. Like the adrenochrome stuff and everything else.
And I think that a lot of people are looking, they're missing the forest, they're missing the forest for the trees. Is that the saying? And the final battlefield for this global war that we're in is the mind. And I do not believe that Q is a tabloid straw man, because the movement was not in the tabloids until it began to supersede and threaten the Mockingbird media. And the truth is always rejected, resisted, despised, and demonized before it's accepted. So with that said, I think that I think that we have to look at the wins. There's been lots of resignations like Cuomo, the Cuomo brothers. All sorts of CNN producers are being proven to be pedos. The child trafficking.
Like, all of this is just made up, largely. There's a grain of truth to some, but the rest is just garbage.
Is being exposed. The vax mandates are dead in the water. Omicron is probably going to create a massive global herd immunity without...
Oh, wow. This is actually really fascinating. So he's just, he made a bunch of claims before going to jail. He claimed that people would be arrested and that the vaccine mandates would be stopped by the white hat military and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? And when none of that stuff happened, he says, see, we succeeded. That's such an interesting way to look at this. It's an interesting direction that QAnon took. An interesting path to alleviate cognitive dissonance.
In the water. Omicron is probably going to create a massive global herd immunity without too much adverse side effects. Let's Go Brandon is taking over the entire nation. I mean, that's, and of all places on college campuses where they were hoping to indoctrinate all these people to be Marxists. Parents are standing up to school boards and CRT is dead in the water.
Wow. It sounds like this guy was keeping up with the news because all of this stuff was happening long after he went to jail, I thought. How is he getting news sources? Is he allowed to watch Fox News in jail? If he was allowed to watch Fox News in jail, I'm going to be upset. They should have removed his access to this stuff. Seriously.
Kyle Rittenhouse's acquittal was a huge win for the Second Amendment. I mean, for Christ's sake, Black Lives Matter and Trump supporters were marching against the vaccine mandates.
Wait, hang on a second.
I mean, for Christ's sake, Black Lives...
Wait, is it Christ's sake or is it Christ's sakes? How many sakes does Christ have, I wonder? Is it multiple sakes or is it a singular sake? Are we talking plural or singular right now?
Kyle Rittenhouse's acquittal was a huge win for the Second Amendment. I mean, for Christ's sake, Black Lives Matter and Trump supporters were marching against the vaccine mandates, for crying out loud. We are now going to have free speech alternatives to social media. Cancel culture is being canceled. People are realizing that woke...
Well, cancel culture actually got a massive infusion of power when the right started canceling a bunch of people. I mean, they've been canceling people for ever. If somebody turned out to be gay, you think they got to keep their position of authority? If Trump came out as gay, or if Ron DeSantis came out as gay tomorrow, do you really think they would keep their voter base? Honestly? You can't tell me with a straight face you believe something like that. So, the right's been canceling people since forever. They've been the worst perpetrators of cancel culture. Bud Light and Target are just a couple of recent examples. The left doesn't cancel people like the right does. Never has, honestly. It's always largely been the outrage crowd. The people that consider themselves to be the moral majority, though they aren't anywhere near the majority. Right-wing extremists, and who start and run with moral panics. Moral panics, in my experience, are, I think they're, in my opinion, they're inherently right-wing movements, moral panics. They have to be, because they hearken back to traditionalist values and beliefs. They freak out about our current values falling apart because, they're being destroyed by some evil movement out there or whatever. That's what a moral panic is inherently, according to Stanley Cohen, the guy that wrote the model, or the stages of a moral panic. So traditionalism, conservatism, it's all part of a moral panic. And it's all part of a right-wing movement.
Social media. Cancel culture is being canceled. People are realizing that...
cancel culture has always been a right-wing thing, by and large, because of, moral panics being a right-wing thing.
Woke is broke, man. The world's waking...
Wait a minute. Hang on. Step back. Listen again.
Speech alternatives to social media. Cancel culture is being canceled. People are realizing that woke is broke, man.
Isn't that funny? Cancel culture is is dying, is being done away with. Woke is broke. So he says cancel culture is evil, and in the very next sentence he says woke is broke, an endorsement of cancel culture. Do they hear themselves speak? Is my question. I want to know if they recognize the cognitive dissonance, or if they just go on about their day, don't even realize that they are being hypocritical, that there is deep hypocrisy in everything that they say. Are they aware of it?
You know, the world's waking up. Everybody's standing in solidarity together, bro. So it's going to take some time. That's just all there is to it. It's going to take some time. So I think that what people need to do, as opposed to being demoralized, is they need to pick a hill and have an indomitable will. They need to stop putting all their hopes in one person or in one group, because then their hope is so easily lost. You know, they need to be the change that they want to see in the world. You have to be the change you want to see. Fight with all your might.
This is all in response to the question, was January 6th supposed to be the storm? This guy cannot give us a straight answer about anything, can he?
You know what I'm saying? But
Do you?
No, I don't know what you're saying. That's the problem here.